There's nothing quite like turning on an old, beloved series or plugging into a new show and being reminded, unprovoked, that the world hates Black women. In today's video, I'll be calling the creators and writers of Ugly Betty to the stand and holding their pasty-ass feet to the proverbial fire for their horrendously anti-Black portrayal of Black women in the series. Y'all best get comfortable. Ugly Betty is a show that follows the life of Betty Suarez and her journey and struggles working at a reputable fashion magazine, Mode. The show first aired in 2006 and featured what could be considered a rather diverse cast in terms of ethnicity, gender, and sexuality. Watching the show, however, I couldn't help but clock the glaring lack of Black women. An absence that only became more glaring when Black women did appear on the screen in significant roles and plot lines, and the writers, ever so thoughtfully, provided us with caricatures embodying harmful stereotypes of Black women that can be dated back centuries to colonialism and slavery. Jezebel meet Mammy. One of the first Black women we meet who plays a significant role in the series is Constance Grady, a caseworker played by the Octavia Spencer, who was in charge of Ignacio's deportation case in season 1 of the series. Clearly not wanting to skimp out on the misogynoir, the writers made sure to provide us a 3-in-1 stereotype combo in the portrayal of Constance Grady that includes the Jezebel, the Mammy, and a third misogynoiristic trope I'll dig into later. In the first season, Betty's father learns he's at risk of being deported back to Mexico as he never officially became a citizen when he first fled to America. In enters Constance Grady, a caseworker assigned to Ignacio to help him obtain citizenship, aka the one thing standing between Ignacio and a one-way flight back to Mexico.
My department is the one thing standing between you and deportation. Now I gotta go grab myself a smoothie.
When we first meet Constance in episode 12 of the first season, it's clear to see that she's, to put it bluntly, a bit of a bitch.
Now, I can make this easy, or I can low-jack your ankle like an ERYKAH. Have I made myself clear?
As someone in her occupation likely would be, she's terse and abrupt, a stickler for the rules with a no-nonsense attitude, who's outright rude to Ignacio during their first interaction. We aren't presented with another side to her until Ignacio gives her a bribe, mug, that looks like it was cobbled together by a 4th grader in the dark. No shade. When Constance is gifted the mug, there's an immediate shift in her mood as she softens up, then violates Ignacio's boundaries and throwing her previously tight-wrapped professionalism out the window as she wraps him up in a hug. She ends their interaction with a not-so-subtle flirtation. And thus, we get our first sighting of the Jezebel stereotype. To ensure we're all on the same page, let me run through what exactly the Jezebel stereotype is. In Patricia Hill Collins' Black feminist thought, she describes the Jezebel as a controlling image used to control Black women's sexuality. The Jezebel represents a deviant Black woman's sexuality and functions to relegate all Black women to the category of sexually aggressive woman. Within the confines of the Jezebel stereotype, Black women are depicted as hypersexual, manipulative, and promiscuous, sexually available aggressors seeking to fulfill their animal-like desires. When Constance hugs Ignacio after receiving the mug, we glimpse this hypersexuality and animal-like desire being displayed from her as she's attracted to Ignacio and is unable to control expressing her quickly growing interest in him that grows more overt, explicit, and uncontrolled as the storyline progresses. In episode 14, when we meet Constance for a second time, she switched up her look, sporting her bundles down with more casual wear as a clear and unprofessional as hell means to seduce Ignacio, or Nacho as she's taken to calling him.
Nacho!
Nacho?
My God, the writers could be so on the nose sometimes. We see Constance changing her hair again in episode 17 to win Ignacio's affection as her character continues to devolve. This overfamiliarity and open seduction feed into the Jezebel stereotype of Black women being hypersexual beings, as not even maintaining any semblance of professionalism as his caseworker is enough for Constance to control expressing her burgeoning desire for this silver fox. On the contrary, Constance opts to use her job and the power she holds in her relationship with Ignacio to try to coerce him into a relationship with her. This narrative choice, once again, feeding into the Jezebel stereotype by portraying Constance as hypersexual and manipulative. She weaponizes her job constantly in an attempt to coerce Ignacio into a relationship. For example, when Constance goads Ignacio into overstepping professional boundaries and inquiring about her personal life, which he clearly has negative interest in, by dangling submitting crucial documents for his status over his head. Even worse, when we learn the alleged boyfriend at the center of her overdramatized and manipulative tears is another man she was assigned a case to. Because, surprise, surprise, she's been running the same scheme with other men at risk of deportation.
I've helped a whole lot of folks become citizens.
A revelation perhaps only slightly more heinous than the Haitian accent of her previous victim I was subjected to hearing.
How do you think me and her hooked up? This is how she operates.
As mentioned, the writers paint Constance as hypersexual and aggressive, with other characters affirming her hypersexual nature. She violates Ignacio's boundaries on multiple occasions, starting with a non-consensual hug and building up to the non-consensual kiss she forces on him. She's clearly a sexual aggressor, preying on Ignacio and stripping consent and autonomy from him through her job. In episode 14, Ignacio voices,
I think she wants to eat me.
The word eat emphasizes Constance's carnal desire and aggressively sexual appetite. Holding on to this idea of food and carnality, there are two separate moments in this plotline where chocolate is brought up. Now I ask you, is it a coincidence that chocolate was thrown into the script so blatantly when the script involved a black woman as an antagonist?
Is it a coincidence? Is it a coincidence? I ask you, is it a coincidence?
I ask you again, is it a coincidence? Constance first brings up chocolate when referring to the chocolate she had gotten for her ex, who wasn't an ex.
And I already bought him some chocolate.
And again, when she's cooking for Ignacio, unsolicited, I might add. She mentions the Viennese chocolate she got for him, emphasizing the chocolates in a sultry voice as a chocolate dream.
Why does this hazelnut symphony always make me want to dance?
The overt flirtation and emphasis of the chocolate clearly functions as a metaphor for herself, playing into her hypersexualization and objectification. A link can also be made between the chocolate, symbolizing Constance in this scene, and the inherent anti-black history between chocolate and black people seen through colonialism and slavery that still exists to this day. But I'll table that discussion for another time. When Constance has Hilda style her hair, now Hilda, you know you're wrong for this. Constance asks her,
I need some insight. Does your daddy like it up, down, or all around?
We are still talking about hair, right?
her words an evident innuendo highlighting her sexual appetite. When Ignacio meets Constance's previous victim, Toussaint advises Ignacio to go along with Constance's desire and give her what she wants, read sex, to secure his citizenship.
I don't think I can play this game.
You want your green card? You don't have a choice, man. You ride that squishy train until you reach your destination.
Toussaint's words affirm the Jezebel stereotype by highlighting Constance's sexual nature and using detached language that essentially reduces Constance to an expendable object, a black body to be used and discarded. What's funny?
Funny. Yes, but not funny, haha. Funny, weird.
Is the writer's ability to manufacture an anti-black caricature with contradictory stereotypes, as seen with Constance embodying characteristics of the Jezebel and the Mammy. It's as they say, art imitates life. For what is anti-black racism if not a jumble of contradiction? Whereas the Jezebel functions as inherently hypersexual and aggressive, the Mammy functions as asexual and a submissive caretaker. Collins defines the Mammy as the faithful, obedient domestic servant. She is loving, nurturing, and caring to white children and families historically, wielding some authority in the domestic sphere and at times receiving love from those she cares for. However, the Mammy still knows her place as an obedient servant and has accepted her subordination. Typically, Mammy stereotypes are depicted as fat and dark-skinned. Constance Grady embodies the Mammy trait as a caretaker in Ugly Betty by extending care and affection for Ignacio through domestic work, cooking. On multiple occasions when Constance appears on screen, we find her in the Suarez kitchen, preparing a meal for Ignacio. The writers underscore this mammified aspect of Constance's character in episode 19 after she spirals mentally and the root of her actions in pursuing vulnerable men is revealed.
So you're gonna be like all the rest of them, huh? I help you put your life together. I hold your hand when you walk into that big, scary courthouse. I get you to the finish line and then I never hear from you again.
Constance perceives herself as a caretaker for these men, and the steps she's taken to secure them citizenship as an act of care and a means not only to help them, but to gain their affection. Through the revelation of Constance's reasoning, the writers once again feed into this Mammy stereotype. Here we have a fat Black woman who has, on her own, designated herself as nurturer and caretaker to these men she is assigned as caseworker, expressing love for them through her work and care with the hopes of having her affection reciprocated. Girl, let me even IMDb the writer so I can know what shows to steer clear of in the future, because this is some dastardly shit. CBB, the crazy black bitch. The real dastardly shit though is that that's not even where it ends with Constance Grady and anti-Black scripts. Oh, y'all thought I was finished? Choosing to have Constance perceive herself as caretaker to men and perceiving herself carrying out her job as a means to express and gain their affection ties into another anti-Black stereotype, the crazy Black bitch, CBB for short.
You heard me. She lied. Bitch crazy. Now listen, the woman had a breakdown. She's unstable. So don't make any quick moves. Just politely excuse yourself and get out!
In terms of the actual label, the CBB is more modern relative to the Mammy and Jezebel scripts, but I do believe its origin and functionality as a controlling image to dehumanize and objectify Black women can also be traced back to colonialism and slavery. Case in point, diagnosing Black slaves with drapetomania, a term coined in 1851 by Samuel Cartwright, rest in hell, that classified runaway slaves as having a mental illness. Like, is you good? The CBB stereotype overlaps at times with the angry Black woman stereotype as it characterizes Black women as unstable, unprofessional, and distrustful, as women who are erratic, aggressive, and don't have control of their emotions. Having Constance perceive herself as some caring savior towards these men with an expectation of romance at the end of her delusions, when she was really a manipulative woman that exploited these men's vulnerable status to coerce them into relationships with her, was a case of the CBB stereotype. And that's not to mention the other absurd behaviors Constance exhibited. There was the stalking in the bushes and the beauty supply store wig, the not so subtle threatening with the meat carving tools. Oh, and who could forget Constance holding Ignacio hostage in her home until he agreed to marry her, all under the guise of helping him in fear of abandonment.
You mind wearing a little heel? I don't want to tower over you since I'm wearing my hair up.
I hate that I giggled. The CBB stereotype is witnessed again in season 2 when we meet Wilhelmina's younger sister, Renee Slater, played by Gabrielle Fine-Ass Union, the second Black actress appearing on the show who has more than 2 lines. Renee encounters Daniel at a bar and oversteps her way into a relationship with him, emphasis on oversteps, after Daniel dead things between them, upon learning she and Wilhelmina traveled out the same birth canal.
So you met my sister.
As the plot unfolds, the mystery surrounding Renee is unraveled as we learn she had been involuntarily committed to a psychiatric hospital with BPD after setting her ex-boyfriend's office on fire.
Looks like commitment papers.
For a gay wedding. Renee's a lesbian.
Oh, Christina. For a mental institution, look.
With the intention of unaliving her ex's secretary, who Renee had convinced herself her ex had been cheating on her with. The said dabblery in arson, missing its target, instead ending up with Renee torching her boyfriend straight to an early grave. Yeah, throughout Renee's relationship with Daniel, due to her erratic behavior and intervention from Wilhelmina, who enlists Mark to tamper with Renee's medication, we watch as Renee's psyche quickly begins to deteriorate as she transforms from overbearing girlfriend with stalker tendencies to a crazy and murderous lunatic. Renee shows up to Daniel's workplace on multiple occasions, taking liberties to change his schedule and disrespect his employees. She barges in on a meeting he's having, boisterously accusing him of cheating on her with models, then proceeding to threaten to unalive him before storming out.
Or I swear to God, I will kill you!
Her behavior quickly becomes abrasive and unstable, with Renee having trouble controlling her emotions. Other characters use language explicitly declaring her to be crazy.
Renee has a history with men. She becomes needy, erratic, obsessive. And no one's gonna believe a crazy woman either.
And you know what? I am all for some boyfriend stalking. I mean, who isn't? But that woman was crazy. Oh no.
In the climax of episode 15, when Renee lures Betty to Daniel's apartment to flambe her because Renee's convinced herself Betty is in love with Daniel, Betty says to her,
I didn't take Daniel from you. You made this all up in your head. You are so afraid to lose him that you can't see what's real.
Deadass can't believe it's Daniel Meade we're talking about here, but I digress. All of these events and behavior and descriptions of Renee mold her into this perfect caricature of a crazy black bitch. Even more so with her actions and erratic behavior being elicited and provoked because of her romantic relationship.
I swear to you, I don't want Daniel. And you only think I do because of some weird little jealousy thing you've got going on.
Listen, engaging with media depicting black women can be draining. It almost feels like, more often than not, media desires to remind you how undesirable black women are in an anti-black world, whether that be from a lack of presence of dark-skinned black women in media, or a presence that is latent in centuries-old stereotypes and caricatures, or decades-old misogynoiristic tropes that are a bit more covert. But trust and believe, we see what you're doing. In the same breath, studies have shown that stereotype depictions of black women in media do have real-world ramifications on the perception of black women. Media doesn't exist in a vacuum, and the reinforcement of stereotypical traits and behaviors and treatment of black women in media impacts how people perceive and engage with black women and children they interact with in a real life. These portrayals also play a part in enabling negative self-perception and engaging in unsafe activities and practices amongst black women and children. All that to say, if this is the best you and your pen have to offer, disrespectfully, leave us the fuck out of it.